If you ever found yourself hankering for the ability to soar through the sky with your friends on your very own airship that you designed and built, then boy do I have a game for you. My name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, and this is Echoes of Elysium. Hello everyone, if you enjoy what I do, including covering very interesting new indie titles such as the Airship building Echoes of Elysium, then a like on this video and a subscription to the channel would be very much appreciated. Thank you so much. Also, huge shout out and thank you to Loric Games for sponsoring this video. I was honored to be approached about checking Echoes of Elysium out ahead of its early access launch, and I was even given an extra code from my buddy Eric so we could play co-op.
Everything's fine. I don't know what you're playing about. Oh god, no, no.
We had an absolute blast, so thank you again to Loric for giving us the opportunity. If at any point in the video you'd like to check out Echoes of Elysium for yourself, you can find the Early Access Edition on Steam via the link in the description and my pinned comment. There's a 10% off launch discount, so if you think you may be interested and you want to join the ride for Early Access and see what skies this one can sail, it's a decent time to do so. So what is Echoes of Elysium? EOE blends shipbuilding and combat with world exploration and crafting to create a world and gameplay that spends a lot of time in tranquil exploration and construction before exploding into frenetic action for short bursts. It's quite the enjoyable loop in my opinion, in particular the stretches of flight from island to island that really show off the game's lighting and physics systems while you go around crafting, building, upgrading, and the like. You take the role of an Elysian, a formerly demigod-like being in a race of the same, until your perfect paradise in the heavens began to crumble and your people began to disappear. Not even the construction of automata to find the missing helped, as they also immediately turned on the remnants of civilization, so generally not good. That leaves you, and potentially a few friends, as the sole survivors aboard the airship equivalent of Jack Sparrow's sinking dinghy, with nothing but your tools, some resources to gather, a goddess in your head egging you onward, and, oh yeah, your sick Da Vinci-looking jetpack, which we'll be talking about a fair bit. As with all videos of this type, I'm going to be breaking it down into a few major sections: core mechanics, visual design, audio design, story, general feedback, and my overall thoughts. I'll have timestamps for all these major sections in the play bar and the description, so feel free to jump around as needed. First off, the mechanics. There are three major aspects to Echoes of Elysium, as I previously mentioned: shipbuilding, world exploration, and resource gathering and upgrade research. You do have foot combat to coincide with the ship-to-ship combat. It's fairly basic, more there as a way to break up your exploration and gathering systems, but it is very interesting when you suddenly get swarmed by a group of robots and find yourself in the fight of your life when previously you were just like cutting down a tree. Simple, but effective. As such, we won't really spend a lot of time talking about it beyond just describing the overall gameplay itself. You navigate the world using, again, that previously mentioned jetpack and ship, collecting airborne items carried aloft by a resource known as lithium, which you will also use in a lot of your building, as well as your more traditional harvesting of metal, wood, foods, etc. using your hands or tools. These materials are used to build new add-ons and structure for your ship, typically at dry docks, although you can do some upgrades in flight as well, which is always fun. As you progress, you'll need more exotic resources, which will push you further afield, as you would probably expect from a sort of survival crafter like this, eventually conquering new lighthouses and docks to use as staging posts for even further excursions. As you gather those resources, you'll get the chance to do new research, allowing you to get stronger hulls for the ship, new propulsion types, new guns for the ship, including like rail guns, as well as armor and weapons for yourself, and other forms of modifying and upgrading resources. As you would probably expect, this does mean that eventually you'll go from basically just some boards strapped together with a high-powered engine on it as a quote-unquote ship, the alleged boat, up to like a proper war galleon in the sky with multiple decks for research, cooking, cannonade decks, your actual wheel at the helm, a ram on the prow, all sorts of fun stuff. You do have multiple layers of different types of research and construction that you'll need to do, starting with a basic crafting bench, then using more advanced machinery at lighthouses to do your research, to process items into new types of items, refine your fuel so that you can create new types of weaponry, or again, load them into these stronger propulsion systems. You need to destroy enemy automata to get their springs and their screws and their gears to bring those back, research how to make your own, use that to make even more high quality stuff. You can see where this is going. The game does seem to to really encourage you to spend your time actually learning about the world yourself. For example, when Eric and I were playing most recently, we could not for the life of us figure out how we could get more hinges or more sprockets to get the research done that we needed to. All we were able to do is build like a basic sword and a couple of upgrades for the ship. And then of course it dawned on us, well, we probably got to go destroy those automata so we can get those pieces, bring them back, and then we can keep upgrading from there. So you are encouraged to actually go out into the world and find new locations with different types of enemies and different resources as you go. This is nice because it always bugs me in any sort of survival crafter or base building game where you just kind of get dropped in and everything is thrown at your feet, and it's kind of difficult to figure out how you are meant to progress. If it's just a sandbox and you can do whatever you want, like you've got a big Lego set, then that's fine. But oftentimes these games expect you to progress in a certain way without giving you as much direction as you would maybe want. So having a little bit more of that natural encouragement to explore and progress in that way is a nice feature in EOE. The shipbuilding itself is absolutely one of my favorite parts of this game. Right off the jump, you can see how you could probably start making some pretty elaborate ships as you get more and more research with various different wall pieces and structures, upgrades that you can provide, the ability to put basically as many sails and rudders and thrusters and propellers on the thing as you want. And it is very noticeable when you do so. If you add a bunch of armor and guns but don't upgrade your propulsion, the ship will slow to a crawl but be nearly indestructible. Whereas if you cut down on the armor and maybe don't have as much weaponry, but load the thing up with propellers and sails, you're going to be very nimble, but may wind up finding yourself in a pinch if you get too close to a couple of mines or some marauding mechanical birds. Once you get some upgrades for your ship and you really start exploring further afield, there is actually a really strong sense that this is a destroyed world. Everything is floating islands, there's chunks of debris from destroyed ships or just broken up land masses all over the place, and you can often find scattered resources here and there on these smaller chunks. You'll also see constant, and I mean constant, debris and resources floating up into the sky on lithium waves. And that helps to sell that idea that there used to be something much greater here, and now it's just kind of floating off into the ether. Even particular items that you wind up gathering yourself or that come off of destroyed enemies could wind up floating away if you're not careful. So it adds that little sense of urgency and makes you feel like you're actually in the sky and exploring in the air rather than just like on a flat plane, especially because a lot of islands are above and below each other, so you'll need to navigate up and down with your ship to get to them. I really do enjoy the exploration quite a bit because the world does feel very empty at first, and granted, that could be an aspect of the fact that it's an early access title. Maybe things just haven't been added into some of these larger stretches that will be added over time, but I actually enjoy it because it gives you that sense of vast loneliness, only to then wind up breaching a cloud and seeing an actual enemy warship flying around in the distance. Like, whoa, that's new, it's shocking, it's exciting. Or strange towers on an island off in the distance that suddenly make you really want to go and explore that and figure out what's going on over there. There's just enough scattered about to constantly catch your attention beyond just looking for new resources and things to do that make you think, okay, there's something going on here for sure. I just need to figure out what. And that sense of curiosity in the exploration drives me personally much more to continue upgrading, to continue building my ships, and continue finding whatever I can to make that exploration easier. And of course, if you don't feel like going around in your ship at the particular moment, maybe there's a nearby island that you want to try to get to, you can always take your trusty jetpack, which you always have on you, and which I think you will be able to get upgrades for later in the game. And that thing is a beast. You can fly quite the distance, and you can build up some crazy speed. It is so easy to just be wandering around, hopping from island chunk to island chunk, picking up lithium resources, only to turn around and realize that you are really far from where you docked your ship, and you may or may not have the energy you need to get back to it before you go rocketing out of the sky. And a lot of the fun that Eric and I have had with this game is making that realization, desperately trying to drop out of the sky onto the ship, missing horribly, and then falling into our deaths in whatever it is that lurks below these floating islands. Just having the ability of flight right from the get-go really changes the sense of exploration for me as well, rather than just like trudging around a forest punching trees to gather whatever, or like having a grappling hook. No, you can fly, man, and the game does make use of that. Of course, all the exploration in the world and all of the fun shipbuilding and combat, etc., may be hindered if there's not a strong visual and audio design to accompany it. Unfortunately, I like what Echoes of Elysium is cooking here. Visually, the game has a stunning skybox, and I know people say that all the time, but seriously, the first time the sun was rising after a long night and we were sailing directly into it, it was dazzling. It is a really, really pretty sight. And the way the clouds move over islands, the ability to see things looming in the distance to, again, encourage you to go and explore them, it really does sell, again, that idea that you're in this shattered, skyborn world. I really enjoy as well the mix of sort of like Greco-Roman, Mediterranean, Egyptian themes going on here with the tapestries and character designs, but also the very classic, almost medieval style of your ships that remind me of like building my first galleon in Age of Mythology or Age of Empires or the like. To the automata being much more obviously clockwork, but also kind of rickety in their design, showing that they're definitely getting on in age and have been through a few different battles. It's a nice theme that lends itself to the overall Odyssey feeling of the game. Audio-wise, it all works. There's nothing that's really offensive, but I have to point out that I really enjoy the ship sounds, the creaking of the boards, the slow groaning of the rudder as it turns, the wump, 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 wump of propellers as you get them active, the impact of a mine or a shot hitting your ship. You actually do really feel that. And again, it makes that fantasy of being a sky pirate navigating this broken world a little bit more real. Definitely recommend listening to those sound effects if you're flying around on your ship and there's nothing else going on. Just tune into it and you'll feel it, I promise. Story-wise, it's your story, right? You have the background set dressing of what happened to the Elysians, and of course there is that lingering question of why it all started happening and trying to discover it, but for the most part, you're a survivor trying to survive. You'll pick out different pieces of information based on where destroyed ships were. Occasionally, the goddess in your head will give you a little bit of insight into, oh, this is a particular battle, or there was a hero that died here, or this is a very dangerous enemy that you're currently looking for. If you can find him, it would be good. But it's more about what you do and how you go about it. You can get more into the lore by, again, reading through those enemy entries and other entries about resources and the like in the journal. But this is much more a game of doing rather than listening. As far as feedback is concerned, it's hard. I never want to be too harsh on an early access game because, again, it's a work in progress. There's anything and everything that could be done. And we actually saw that because the game did get delayed from its initial release date to its current one. It wasn't a huge delay, but even in that time, having played both versions before I put this video out, there's such a vast improvement in terms of just assets, progression systems, new animations, new sound effects, fixing of a lot of bugs, even if some other ones wound up getting introduced. It's clear that there's a lot of work being done behind the scenes on Echoes of Elysium, and so I imagine that by the time the full release comes around, there's going to be a massive difference in what I've played here compared to that finished project. Right now, the two biggest things for me are just continuing to see bugs get hammered out and optimization, especially in multiplayer. It's not uncommon when you're playing with friends, if they're far out from the ship, to see them suddenly start juddering across the sky as they get just a little too far away for the game to be able to keep track of where they are on your screen super accurately. And there's definitely some things with hit registration when you're firing guns or swinging at enemies and the like. Bugs are bugs. They exist. They'll get hammered out over time. There's nothing too specific to discuss there, but it is worth mentioning. The only real point of annoyance that Eric and I had was just having difficulty tracking down certain resources, as the map will actually tell you what biomes are meant to have those resources. And we're not sure if it's like specific islands in that biome or what, but we've had a hard time sometimes finding necessary resources like copper, really scouring islands until we finally find some somewhere that we didn't even think it would be in the first place. This could just be a world seed issue, absolutely. Maybe it's an issue with just the way map descriptions are written, I'm not sure, but that would be a nice one to see change so that it's much easier to actually go out and find some of the things that you do need to keep making your progression further and further into the world a little bit smoother. Overall, though, I absolutely loved my time playing Echoes of Elysium, and Eric did as well. Once the full thing is out, we're going to rally a group of friends and really dive in, because I want to have a big-ass airship and send out my peons like I'm a carrier in StarCraft, and they're flying out to attack things and gather resources, come back, keep building the ship up, make a fleet if possible. I think it absolutely has a ton of potential to be a great time with friends, or again, solo if you just want to dive into a lonely world and make something of it for yourself. This is one that I'll be keeping my eye on as it progresses through its dev cycle, and with any luck, we'll be talking about it again on the channel at some point in the future, whether in a video or a stream or something else. Props to the team for their hard work. Thank you once again for sponsoring this video as well. Remember, if you would like to check out Echoes of Elysium, you can find links to do so on Steam in the description and in the pinned comment. If you decide to do so, or you're just intrigued based on this video, give me your thoughts. What do you like? What do you dislike? Drop some feedback for the devs if maybe they'd wind up being able to see it, or I can pass it along to them. That'd be great. I hope to see some lively discussion in the comments regardless. For now, though, I'm going to wrap this one up here. My name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. Thank you all so very much for watching. I hope that you all have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there. And remember, be good to each other, y'all. Bye now.